Okay, in checkpoint 2, we're going to use a property of square roots, a property called the product rule for square roots, and you should be familiar with that. But the way that works is if you have the square root of two different numbers that are multiplied together, you can separate it out into separate square roots. So this can be written as square root of a times the square root of b. And similarly, if you have two square roots multiplied together with numbers underneath, you could put that together under one square root symbol. Okay, we're going to use this first property, this first version, to help us simplify the square root of 75. Square root of 75 is not considered to be in simplest form because there is a factor of 75 that we can take the square root of. And when you're trying to simplify the square root of numbers, you need to think of different factors of those numbers, and if you can take the square root of one of those, then you need to pull it outside to put it in simplest form. Factors you're going to look at, numbers like 4, because you can take the square root of 4, 9, 16, 36, 25, 36, 49, 64, and so on. If we look at this number, one of the numbers I mentioned was 25. 25 is a factor of 75, so what you should do is rewrite it as the square root of 25 times 3. Then, using this property, we have the square root of two numbers multiplied together. I can rewrite it as the square root of 25 times the square root of 3. And I can take the square root of 75, that's equal to, or excuse me, the square root of 25, that's equal to 5. So this will simplify to 5, because 5 is the square root of 25 times the square root of 3. And this is considered to be in simplest form for the square root of 75. The second example uses the other form of this product rule. And in trying to simplify an expression like this, you could work with these separately, but sometimes it's helpful to be able to put the two together under one radical sign and then move forward in the simplification. You know, and sometimes you might have to try different things to actually simplify it, and whatever rule works, just make sure you use a valid property. So I'm going to take these two and I'm going to put them together under one radical sign. So this is the same as the square root of this thing, 5x, times this thing, 10x. All right, and so we could combine that. Let's put the number part together, 5 and 10. That gives us 50 and x squared. Okay. And looking at this, you know, we want to try to put outside of the radical symbol whatever we can, or as much as we can. And 50 does have a factor that we could take the square root of. That's 25. So I'm going to take, first of all, let's rewrite this as the square root of 50 times the square root of x squared. Okay. 50, we could split that into the square root of 25 times 2. Square root of x squared, the number you multiply to get x squared is x. So this will be times x outside of the square root symbol. I can split this off and write it as the square root of 25 times the square root of 2, and then we have x outside already. Square root of 25 is 5. So this will be 5 times the square root of 2x. And this would be a correct way to write this, although normally we do not write it like that, because when you write this with the square root symbol, depending where you end the symbol, it might look like the x is under the square root. So normally what we would do is move the x up with the 5 and write it as 5x times the square root of 2, and then there's no ambiguity from the x being under looking like it's under the square root symbol.